Hello, welcome back to IrishRacing.com's Jump To It show, where today we're going to be previewing Champions Day at Ascot. Of course, the big headline story, Baaeed bowing out. We're going to get to his race later on. It might be a bit of a walkover, given that he is the 4-1 odds-on favourite for that one. But joining me to preview the rest of the cards, more intriguing action as ever at Ascot, Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley. Now, Stephen, I'll start with you. Just first of all, how's your week been with betting expert tips, and also how much are you looking forward to Ascot?
Yeah, I've had a few winners, Joe. It should be a fairly profitable week for betting expert followers. It's a funny time of year, isn't it? Because really, you should be thinking about the jumps now. We've had the first Chepstow meeting. The ground should be getting softer, and the competitive racing should be improving over sticks. And this day at Ascot really does mark more or less the end of the flat season proper. I know we've still got racing running through the whole year round, but really it should be the jumps after this weekend. And there is rain forecast finally. The forecast for the next couple of weeks in the UK does look pretty wet, with Cheltenham in mind for the following week. So yeah, it's a funny sort of transitionary sort of time for punters, but hopefully this weekend at Ascot we can find some winners.
And Ed, also, pleasure to have you back on the show. Good teaming up as well for the stable tours lately. So just talk a little bit about those and how they've been for you.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, been great fun, haven't they? We're down at Ben Pauling's week before last. That was good fun. Ben gave us some good insight, including obviously Global Citizen, kind of his flag bearer for the stable, who heads to the American Grand National on Saturday evening for a big pot over there. That should be a good race. So best of luck to him and that horse. And this week, Jamie Snowden's yard in Lambourne, fascinating to look around there and all the hopes. Lots of young horses in there, and he's got a few established stars which he's hoping could kind of make the jump up into the top bracket, if you like. And obviously you have to check out the stable tour to find out who they are and everything. But no, it's been good fun. And as Stephen says, Cheltenham only a week away today. As I say, it's pretty rock hard ground around Cheltenham at the moment. But getting the old Michael Fish-ometer out, there's plenty of rain forecast kind of middle of next week onwards. So yeah, hopefully bit of juice does get in the ground. Otherwise, we'll have Stephen moaning for about 18 minutes about small fields at the home of jump racing, which won't be a great way to kick off the show in a week's time.
Obviously, before we get ahead of ourselves, start talking about Cheltenham, we do have Champions Day at Ascot to get to. So Ed, what do you think about your thoughts on the ground at Ascot? I mean, how quick is it going to be, and how much will that impact the races on Champions Day?
It won't be quick at Ascot, from what I gather. I mean, it's officially good to soft in places at the time of recording. Had a bit of rain earlier in the week. It's like that at the moment. I mean, there's just been isolated pockets of rain. You saw Brighton. It was absolutely, they're running up and down on the spot. It was so soft. Yet you're looking at Carlisle. It was good to firm on the hurdles track. So bit of a lottery in terms of what ground you're getting in the moment. And Ascot, bottom line is, have had a bit of rain, and it's got a no excuses ground here in many respects. It's just on the slow side of good to soft. I mean, your proper summer ground horses, maybe there is the excuse written for you there, but I think it's a cracking day of action. It really is. You start going through it. At the end of the day, you want your champions on Champions Day. Now, I know some people are saying, oh, well, we've got a few short price favourites and odds on shots and everything, but look, essentially that's what you want. This is almost the end of season gala dinner. You know, all those black tie events you get invited to on company expenses, Joe. You know, you turn up, you just get to see all the stars of the show in one big room, and that this is the type of day it is. And I'm really looking forward to it, in honesty. And then outside of that, there are a couple of more tricky races. I know in the last, the Balmoral, Stephen fancies one, and we've got some competitive action in the champion sprint as well. But all in all, it divides opinion, this meeting, doesn't it? And often, I think the Champions Day, how should we say, it's almost, essentially, it relies on the ground. I remember when we've had proper deep going for this meeting in previous years, the fields fall apart, the trainers don't want to run their horses, and it all just becomes literally a bit of a damp squib. But all being well, we've got no excuses on the ground front, and we should have a cracking day of action.
Lovely stuff. Well, let's get straight into it then. Let's start talking about the first race on the card. So the 125, we've got the Kipco British Champions Long Distance Cup. Trueshan goes here. Stephen, I'll start with you. Worthy favourite in Trueshan? I mean, not in spectacular form of late.
No, it was the Dead 8, Joe. What a fantastic start for punt. This is a fascinating race. I mean, I really do think Trueshan will do these for speed. Alan King has obviously wrapped this one up in cotton wool for most of the season. Only had 4 runs. A top-class stayer, does need settling in the early stages, has got an explosive turn of foot, which isn't the case with his two market rivals. And I think if Holydoyle can get Trueshan settled in the early stages, I think he'll murder the two rivals for speed. But it's a really good race. Eldarov, of course, did Betting Expert follow as a turn in the St Ledger. He's very much a grinder. He takes plenty of driving. He's a relentless stayer. I'm not so sure that he'll be quite so well suited to Ascot as he was to Doncaster. I think Trueshan's got more speed. And similar comments apply to Waterville, who's still improving. Only had 6 career starts for Aidan O'Brien, thriving as his stamina has been drawn out. If you watch the run back in the Irish Cesaro, which last time out, that was an incredible run. He came from around 20 lengths behind in running, finishing like an absolute train under an inspired ride. He's got more to come, but I think as the way this race is going to be run, I think Trueshan, as long as gets a bit of cover and settles early on, I think will quicken away from the two stayers late. Just to touch on the ground, Joe, I think it's going to be good to soft, no worse. There's no rain forecast of any significance at Ascot on Friday. Saturday looks a chance of showers. So unless that's wrong, I think it'll be good to soft ground.
And for you, Ed, as well, any thoughts on Trueshan here? Do you echo Stephen's thoughts?
Yeah, Trueshan's made this race his own, but maybe I'm just missing something, which is entirely plausible. But why is Coltrane 10 to 1? I don't really know. I seem to be hearing every excuse under the sun why Trueshan didn't win last time out. It was good to soft ground, 2 miles, 2 furlongs. It was, it's a 2 to 9 shot, Trueshan, and afterwards it was this wrong, that was wrong, and he'd had sore shins from before, and okay, fair enough, but Coltrane was off level weights and toughed it out and caused an upset. And I've got to be honest with you, this was a race that I hadn't looked at that closely until last night. I was shocked to see Coltrane as big as 10 to 1. In all honesty, I just wonder if we're making too many excuses for Trueshan and not giving enough credit to Coltrane for his performance last time out. It just seems to be one of these late blossoming 5-year-olds, doesn't he, for the Andrew Balding team? You think only back in March he was rated 95. He's just suddenly clicked, like a lot of the horses have for the Balding team this year. So I'm hoping we get the 8 go to post. Stephen will be wincing into his Horlicks when there's a non-runner at 10 past 11 tonight. But I'd love the 8 to go to post because I think Coltrane's a knocking each way bet against Trueshan, personally. I just think he's the wrong price at 10 to 1. I just said, I think, in the aftermath of last time out, it's, oh yeah, but this was wrong with Trueshan, and oh, this Trueshan. And I think Coltrane toughed it out and won it pretty nicely in the end, all things considered. So as a double figure poke alternative, he gets a small each way play for me.
I like it. Yeah, good early value in the show. So thanks for that, Ed. Now we're going to move on to the next race on the card. So of course the 2 o'clock, 6 furlongs. Quick one here. I know, Stephen, you do like the look of the favourite, last year's winner, of course. Just take us through your thoughts on the race.
Yeah, I really like Creative Force here. I like the fact that he's fresh. He's only had a few runs this season. He started off in March in Maidan, so that doesn't really count. He's only run twice since. He again ran an absolute screamer at the Royal Meeting, just beaten by his stablemate Naval Force, who was on the other side of the track. I think he was a bit unlucky. And last time at Newmarket in the July Cup, I think he was poorly positioned early. He was a bit out of his ground, and he still ran really well. He's got a fantastic record at Ascot. He's got a fantastic record when there's any rain and soft ground. Everything's in place. That it is an 18-runner sprint. I think you're going to want 5 to 1, but I think half of them are fairly hard to fancy. Rohan is another one. Dave Evans, sprinter, he's been a revelation this season, but he has had a series of hard races. He was impressive here last time out. He quickened up smartly, but he's been on the go for most of the season, whereas Creative Force, I think, has been laid out for this prize, and good to soft or slightly softer ground, absolutely ideal. I think he's the standout form choice. And I think you probably get, because there's so many runners, I mean, I've seen 4 to 1 with the firms. I should think he'll be at least 5 to 1 on the exchanges, and I think that's a very fair price.
Absolutely. Ed, as well, I'll bring you in here. I know Kim Ross has done well for you in the past. Do you like his chances in this race?
Not really. It feels a bit of an afterthought. I think Kim Ross has very much made 7 furlongs his niche trip. Not an exaggeration to say he's one of the best 7 furlong soft ground horses in the world. I think he needs all the stars to align to many respects. Back here, over 6 on good to soft. I think it'll be similar to as we saw in the summer in the Jubilee. it'll just find this all happening a little bit too quickly. I'm again, maybe I'm just my brain's too much in jump mode here, but I cannot believe Perfect Power was 11-1. I think he's a huge price. Never lost a race at Ascot. A Royal Ascot winner, won the Commonwealth Cup in really good fashion. Handles cutting the ground. I can understand why he's a double figure price because he flopped in the Maurice de Geese last time, but he was drawn in the absolute car park on that occasion. The horses that dominated John Quinn's horse Highfield Princess and Owen Burrows' horse Minzal, they were drawn low. The low numbers dominated. He was out in the sticks, couldn't really get involved, and was only beaten just over 2.5 lengths at the line or something there or thereabouts when closing. He's back on his happy hunting ground here. Never lost a race at Ascot, loves the ground, Royal Ascot winner, multiple Group 1 winner. Tom Marcon comes in for the ride. I think he's a big each-way player at 11s, personally.
Another good long shot there from Long Shot Ted, of course. So, yeah, nice one. We'll move on now to the next race on the card. So we're going to look at the 240. So this is, of course, for the fillies and mares. Now, Emily Upjohn, the favourite, wears headgear for the first time, or wears a hood, sorry, for the first time. Stephen, how much of an impact do you think that will actually help on kind of keeping her in check and making her the worthy favourite for the race?
Yeah, I think this is the hardest race of the 6. I must admit, I haven't got a strong opinion here, but I thought I selected Emily Upjohn. She does wear a hood for the first time, Joe, but she's always worn a hood going to the start. She is a hard puller who needs settling, so it's not really something new. The fact that she's going to keep it on for the race perhaps might help her. She's got the best form. She finished second to Tuesday in the Epsom Oaks. It was a brilliant run. She was probably unlucky. Her run was checked and Dettori then switched and she ran on strongly. That's rock solid Group 1 form. It's the best on offer. Now, the problem for Emily Upjohn back is she absolutely blew out altogether when we last saw her at Ascot, the race Pile Driver won. But that was a mad race. I mean, she was giving Dettori. I mean, I think Gosden was furious after the race. Dettori just didn't settle her. She pulled for a mile and then stopped as though she'd been shot turning home. That was not her running. So presumably they've gone back to square one. They've had a few months to settle her down, get her ready. 14 runners here, big field, should help her. Hopefully she'll be dropped right out. When she ran well in the Oaks, she missed the break completely, was dropped out miles out the back and sustained her run to challenge and ran really, really well. I suspect they'll be very, very patient. So she's going to be ridden for luck, and she's only sort of 7-2, 4-1. But I think if she gets back to her Epsom form, then she's very much the one to beat. But this is a race chock full of fillies and mares. It's also chock full of quite a lot of horses who've had quite a lot of hard races in a relatively short space of time. So what you're going to quite get in the middle of October is always a question mark. As Ed said earlier, this time of year, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. It can be a bit of an afterthought at times on completely different ground. And a lot of them have been on the go all summer on fast ground. So I thought this was really hard, but Emily Upjohn was my selection.
Yeah, and for you, Ed, as well, any more double-figure long shots for you in this one?
Well, just very quickly on Emily Upjohn, Stephen did make a good point about how free she was at Ascot. They put the hood on her for the first time, so clearly they're going to try and keep a lid on things in the prelims and throughout the race. I agree with Stephen in the sense that I think this is very, very tricky. You could kind of run this race 5 or 6 times and probably get a different winner each time. But Ashada won this race 12 months ago, and I just wonder if she's going to be primed to come right for this. She's been one that I've been getting my fingers burnt on this show with. She's been getting better all season without getting the job done. But last time out, if you haven't seen the replay of that race against Mimikiu, who she reopposes today, watch it back, because at about the 2 furlong pole, I thought it was a case of how far would Ashada win by. She almost fell in a hole. Now, that was over an extended 1 mile 6. It's basically over just a bit north of the Ledger trip. She's back 3 furlongs or thereabouts for today's assignment. We know from last year, obviously being last year's winner, she's happy at this trip. So I wouldn't be shocked if she was in the frame once again with everything perfect for her. So at 9-1, she is a tentative, I will admit, tentative each way play in probably the trappiest race on the card.
Lovely stuff. All right, let's move on then to the next race on the card. So the 320, the QE2 Stakes. So Ed, take us through your thoughts on this one. Inspiral, the worthy favourite for you?
Yes, and I think odds against is fair as well, personally. Obviously, she still gets a Fillies allowance, and I mean, Yard have a brilliant record in this, and yeah, she's only got that one real kind of blip, hasn't she, on her resume when she beat it 1-7 or something like that. Something crackers back at Newmarket in July when Prosperous Voyage got the better of her, but she clearly wasn't right. I mean, the official line after that was the ground was too quick, but the run come too soon after Royal Ascot, and I think that is the key angle in here. John Gosden said, "Look, we'll go to France next time out." And of course, in the aftermath of winning in Deauville, everyone's like, "Right, where are we going to see her? Where are we going to see her?" He said, "No, we're going to just ease off her now. We want to come into Stay fresh. She's not a filly which can back up a really busy campaign." So going back to Stephen's kind of freshness point, she's only had 3 runs since this time last year. So she, as far as favourites go, she's had a very light prep. John Gosden, obviously, being and John and Thady being the masters they are, that they'll have a tune for this. Some of these others, as Stephen says, they've had hard enough seasons. You just wonder, how many times can you keep going to the well? With Inspiral, this has very much been the plan since the summer, if you like. So I'm very happy with odds against, if you can get that personally with Inspiral. It's a good race, and likes of Modern Games are good horses. The Revenant obviously got the job done at this meeting in the past. Jadumi would be really interesting if the heavens did open. But as Stephen says, it looks like the sun may come out. So all in all, it's a cracking contest. But I think odds against on Inspiral is fair for a very class filly.
Now, I know, Stephen, we're going to get to your tips in another video here on irishracing.com soon, but you like the look of the Revenant here, so just take us through your thoughts on the race and why you came to that conclusion.
Way, and I think the Revenant's fairly bomb-proof, and I think the sort of slight edge maybe with the price around 6 or 7 to 1 is A, back at Ascot, and B, Ryan Moore's booked for the first time in his career. I mean, he's run 3 times in this race. He's won it once. Last year, he ran an absolute screamer trying to beat Baaeed and then weakening out things in the final 100 yards. He ran really, really well. If it rains, that massively increases his chance, and it'd have to be a slight question mark for the favourite. I don't disagree with Eddie entirely. I wasn't overly impressed at Deauville last time out, and also the run at Newmarket. Obviously, it was a bounce, second run back. Gosden thought he made a mistake, but it was disappointing. I just, at the back of my mind, I'm not convinced Inspire was quite as good as she was as a 2-year-old, to be truthful. And I'd sooner play each way on the Revenant, who I think is virtually bomb-proof. He's fairly exposed, but he's run well in France the last twice. Any rain that comes is ideal. I just think the jockey switch from Pellier, various other riders in France have been on board, and Moore's up this time. I think he's a straightforward ride, the Revenant. He's bound to give his running, and I think I'd probably sooner sort of take 5 to 4 a place and back him each way and have the win bit running for you. I don't think there's that many realistic contenders. I mean, once you're down to Bayside Boy, who's around 20 on the exchanges, he's 5th in. I don't fancy him, and I don't fancy anything underneath that either. So this has got a good shape to be a punter. Whatever you think of the favourite, I think you're entitled to probably back the Revenant each way at around 6 to 1.
Lovely stuff. I think, that sums it up quite nicely there. Now, the last race we're going to feature on our Ascot Champions Day preview does feature Baeed, of course. It's his last race. He's 4 to 1 odds on favourite. We don't really need to go into the betting value. But, Ed, I want to get your views on Baeed, the career he's had, and obviously how he'll go down amongst the greats.
Oh, well, it's been magic, hasn't it? I mean, what a horse, you should say. If you can go to the retirement shed with an unbeaten tag like Joe Calzaghe or Floyd Mayweather, then you've done pretty well, haven't you? But, yeah, I mean, remarkable, really, for an individual who obviously didn't make it to the track as a 2-year-old, and then he's just taken off, and his form's gone to new levels. And I think that's the frustrating bit from a racing fan. If you forget everything, that he went up to 10 furlongs for the first time in his life last time out, and absolutely obliterated a pretty good field in the international. You had Mishriff, who's a 124 rated horse, absolutely cooked in behind him. You had Native Trail, an Irish Guineas winner, dropping out the back of the television. It was just a lovely performance, the way in which he went through that assignment. And it just feels like, we're curtailing him short. He's going to run here. Look, he's got a tough enough race on his hands in the sense he's got a Derby and King George winner in Adayar in opposition, but I suspect he'll come through this, he'll win, and then he goes off to retire. And it's just that little bit of frustration that he retires without us really knowing how good he could have been in many respects. He still feel there's so much more untapped potential in there. Could he have gone a mile and a half? How much more could he achieve at a mile and a quarter? I mean, imagine the news. It suddenly said Baaeed staying in training and they're going to aim it next year's Arc. I mean, that's absolutely, billboard stuff, isn't it? And so look, he's been a brilliant horse, but it's like we all want more in racing. And just for some, just there's this underlying feel under the bonnet that he's going to win this. It 1-4. Yeah, cheers, thanks everybody. Good night. Off he goes, and almost feel it's like it's untapped potential still. It sounds daft to say about a multiple Group 1 winner at the end of his 4-year-old campaign, but that he's been a brilliant horse. I just wish we could just see him roll the dice in one more extravagant race. But no, he's a brilliant horse, and I expect him to win.
And Stephen, do you share that sentimental view as well? Do you wish there was just more from him?
Yeah, I'd agree with him. He's won 10 out of 10. He's a 4-year-old, and this is the last time we'll see him. He'll probably win, won't he? But he's not a horse who's going to be remembered in 5 years' time. I mean, Stradivarius, who's retired as well now, and he's been campaigned. He's run a lot. He's run in all the top races over the last 5 or 6 years. And what a fantastic advert he's been. And people will remember a horse like that. Whereas a horse like Baeed, who's an incredible talent, never seen as good as probably second into Frankel in the last decade or so. But yes, it does seem a shame. I mean, I think actually they did do the right thing not running that arc. I mean, that was absolute slugfest, wasn't it? I can't imagine that would have done him any favours. But and whether he'd have won or not is another matter. But I suspect he'll win this. Just to say, Joe, the each-way Snides, who I would hate to characterise myself as that, but the each-way Snides might be playing here. And I thought Bay Bridge and maybe My Prospero. If you're going to back things each way, the bookmakers will hate this. There's 9 runners. There's 3 or 4 look an absolute million to get in the frame, and Bay Bridge and My Prospero are certainly not that. You could maybe do an each-way cross doubles with the Revenant would be worse wagers to have. Certainly bets that bookmakers would hate to take, and because it's a busy Saturday, you'll probably find it a lot easier to get on. But no, I expect Baaeed to win very easily. I suppose, if you really look searching desperately for a negative, if the weather was a lot worse than expected and it got soft, heavy, I'm not rushing to bet 4 on a horse who's never run on heavy ground before, but I don't think it's going to be anything like that. So I expect he'll win on the bridle, but maybe those 2 for the places.
All right, I think that's nice little tip there against the bookmakers. They might not be too happy with you, Stephen, but we'll keep that in. Anyway, it should be good for the punters. But that wraps it up for our Champions Day preview here on Irish Racing. We'll be back very soon as well with another video where we go through the guys' expert tips for the weekend, so be sure to check that out. We'll also be live with the stable tour from Jamie Snowden, as Ed alludes to, and also check out the stable tour we did with Ben Pauling recently. There's plenty more content coming your way on Irish Racing, so be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again very soon.